Hello and welcome to Catheee Paints. I'm Catheee Wapple, and we're going to be painting miniatures tonight. This is the Elven Ranger from WizKids D&D Frameworks miniatures. They're doing a line of miniatures that are not only unpainted, but they come on sprues, and you assemble them, and you get to prime them, and you get to paint them. Unlike the Nolzer ones, which are already primed. Some people like that whole, I want to assemble it, I want to file mold lines, I want to prime it with, whatever primer I like. And and that's how these are. And they're really well detailed. They're easy to put together. They glue together with plastic glue, and I'm painting this guy, and I've been working on him. I finished him up a couple weeks ago. Some of you may remember the one we lovingly call Bullwinkle, Bullwinkle J. Ork, with his moose antler headdress helmet. Today I'm just going to be painting armor on this guy. That's about my mental speed right now. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. I need to make a dark color on my palette. I have some basic colors on the palette already. I've got red. Let's see, I have my crappy mixing brush. My magenta seems to have bled into my white, so I'm going to add some fresh white to the palette. I have red, I have yellow, I have blue, phthalo green, magenta. But I think we'll put some fresh magenta out there. I may need to put some fresh red out there too. No, that doesn't look like it's too bad. Thank goodness for that. All right, white. The white that I use is an artist acrylic. It's Utrecht acrylic titanium white. Your white doesn't have to be Utrecht. That's just the brand that I have. Golden Liquitex. The one that a lot of people like is Schminky, but that's a German brand, and it's harder to get in the U.S. So this one works just fine. It's a lot thicker. You can see that it's a lot thicker coming out of the tube than the miniature paints that are on my palette. But that doesn't really matter right now. That would only matter if I was doing large swaths of white. Like if I was doing white armor or white cloth, in which case I might thin down that white paint a little bit with a glaze medium. But in this case, we've got our white out there. I want to put a little more magenta because, like I said, my magenta sitting all weekend on this wet palette kind of bled into my other white. So we have new white. We're going to have new magenta, which I'm shaking right now. That's what I'm doing here. It's one thing you do with the miniature paints. You shake them every time you're going to use them. All right, now we can mix a dark color that is approximately black, but not quite black. This is my almost black. Ooh, ooh. I have things over here. Bubble wrap. I have bubble wrap, which I fully intend to pop at some point. Not on stream. My stress relieving bubble wrap. I know I'm not the only person who does that. So we have red, we have green, the phthalo green and the red. We're going to get some blue in there too. You can see how dark this gets already. This is sort of a dark maroon color already. And I'm just going to take this blue. I'm going to be using a lot of this because we're going to be mixing a gray color out of this color as well. Or I just get some blue, a little bit of green, some of my red, and mix it over here, and then add white to that. Then I keep all this pile of dark color all by itself. I'm gonna rinse my brush off before I stick it in the white. So now you'll get to see this transform into gray. And you would think that with those colors, it's not black. It's definitely not black. And this looks gray, but it's not a neutral gray. It's not completely neutral. It is kind of a nice middle point between my dark color and my white, though. And when you're painting armor, that's what you want. I also probably want a darker gray if I'm honest, but we'll cross that bridge later. Now I also want to look at the surrounding items that would be reflecting light onto the armor. What colors are going to reflect? This color of this wood is going to reflect onto the middle tones of the armor right here. This blue is going to reflect onto the middle tones of this here. So we always want to take that into account. Down here, it's facing this wood, so we want some of that color, which I kind of already have sitting on my palette. That's not what it was intended for. I think that was a flesh tone I was painting last week. So I need to make another brown color. I think we'll use red and yellow and blue. Well, we'll mix some white with it and see what happens. Hey, Rathmore. How you doing tonight? Good to see you. The question is, do I stick with blue? Well, first of all, I need more blue on my palette. These are all Reaper colors that I'm using. This Reaper paint from Reaper Miniatures, and this is the clear blue. I did put more magenta on my palette. I am okay tonight, Rathmore. I am okay. How are you? That hot dish looked delicious. I am glad. Tater tot hot dish. That is such a Minnesota thing. I feel I so I'm mixing this brown. But I feel like first of all, I feel like everything's a little washed out and my brightness might be too high. But I need magenta in this business here. I'm missing the warmth. It was turning a little on the green side. We're gonna warm it up with a little magenta. Or liven it up, I guess is another way to say it. Of course I need magenta, right, Rathmore? Of course I need magenta. And now I feel like this color is close to the color of this wood, and so that's going to be reflecting into that armor there. And then, gosh, I don't remember exactly what blue I used for this guy's cloth. I used, well, I used the Reaper Clear Blue, but I'm sure it doesn't seem like me to not mix another color with the blue and just use it straight out of the bottle. I mean, I've done that, but I don't usually do that. It's not my main method of operation. Hmm. Hmm. Well, blue. I know there's blue in it, so we'll get some blue. And maybe maybe I used a little red to tone down the blue a bit. That's possible. Add a tiny smidge of white. That looks good, close. Maybe a little more white because this is supposed to be kind of a mid-tone value, not a real dark value. These are colors that are going to be reflecting on the metal on this guy. So we've got the white here. I'm gonna find some highlights. I'm gonna find some darks, and then we're gonna throw some midtones in. And I'm actually testing this on my thumb and blotting excess paint off. I just want some dots, some general areas of my white, and I know I want it down the ridge of this armor all the way down. You see how it already almost looks like a reflection there? What way do we want a reflection? Like the side of his face here has a reflection, so maybe the light's coming from this way. And that's an important thing to know, is what direction your light's coming from. The other thing to know with non-metallic metal, which is what this technique is called in miniature painting, is that you're going to do a lot of back and forth. There's going to be a lot of things where you go, oh, this just doesn't look right. Let me make this darker. This highlight needs to be toned down. Now this highlight needs to be brought up again. Now it needs to be toned down again. Now it needs to be brought up again. It's just a lot of back and forth, and it's inevitable. And everybody goes through that. It isn't just like a beginner thing. It's not like you're making mistakes. It's just that's part of the process. That's just part of the process. Rathmore says NMM, that's non-metallic metal. Hard mode, so much back and forth. I feel like he's also not in focus. Maybe he is, and I'm just imagining it. Uh, I've done a lot of second guessing myself today, so uh, that could just be part of it. So we're just gonna keep going and not care. So this guy's wearing a chain. I noticed this earlier today. And on this chain is a medallion that's a unicorn. Now, I know that this was sculpted digitally and that this unicorn has little spirals on his horn, but I didn't even see that it was a unicorn the whole time I've been looking at this guy for the last few weeks until today. There's also a little texture on the mane of the unicorn, but you can't see it because it's so tiny. No one can. I can barely see it. And that's one of those things that happens with digital sculpting is the person who's sculpting it has it really huge on their monitor, which is great for adding detail. But then when you go to print it out at its tiny little scale, all that detail gets shrunk down and kind of disappears sometimes. So you really have to look for it. And I'm glad I spotted this before I started painting other things. The paint does bring out details. Usually the dry brush brings out a lot of details too. And if I hadn't have done that dry brush thing that I like to do when I start out, I would have totally missed that. Eventually maybe I would have figured it out, but I might have just painted it like some random weirdly shaped medallion instead of an actual unicorn. Because there's there's so many instances where you're just like, I don't know what this is supposed to be on this random model, but we're just gonna call it a ladle. We're just gonna call it a ladle. Yeah, Rathmore. That sort of thing happens to Rathmore all the time. He says, "Oh, that's an X. Oh, that's what that is." After I've already painted it, finally figured it out. Or you see somebody else's painted version of it, and you're like, "I should have known that. I should have known that's what that was." I absolutely love looking at how other people paint models that I've painted. It's fun. It's fun for me to see how other people interpret things because it's always different. Now now it's just buckles. Doing some buckles here. Of course, I want to bring out the edges of these buckles. And the question always is does the buckle go all the way around? Of course it does. Of course it does, Cathee. But that one looks like it doesn't. It looks like he goes under the leather. That one goes all the way around. So we have some good highlights blocked in here. It's looking I'm just really really getting in there with that white. And then just on this side on the far corner. See how I have the white going down and then on this side it connects with that line going down the center. And on this side there's just this line of dark right next to it. That contrast. That's a key thing for non-metallic metal. And then we're just going down this side with our lighter color, leaving that strip of dark going down the middle. And there's more on his hips. Rathmore says, I should have known, but instead I made different artistic choices. It's not that I missed something. Yeah, it's not that I missed something. Totally meant to do it that way. Exactly. All right. Now we got to figure this out on his on his hip here, on his upper thigh. Where's that reflection going to be? Down the middle? What this part is kind of weird. This little thing that comes out right there. It's a weird little detail. I don't know armor. Maybe if I was an armor geek, I would know exactly what that was, and it would look totally natural. I'm not, so it just looks weird to me. All right, we've picked to go right down the center, and then these two things down at the bottom. Remember on the front one, we picked the light sources coming from this side of the model, which means that this armor on this side of the model is going to reflect the light a little differently than the armor that was on the front of the model. And it's not just that I like to make things harder for myself this way. Honest. Rathmore says, true metallic metal paints snicker from the rack. They don't snicker from my rack. They snicker from a bin somewhere out of my reach. those those poor metallic paints, they don't see a lot of action in my house. And it isn't because, I hate metallics or something. I just, when I started out painting miniatures, there was a style of painting that was really big at the time. It was just coming out. The people who painted miniatures for the Confrontation game, the Rackham Confrontation tabletop war game back in the early 2000s, they had this technique. They're the ones who really started it. This non-metallic metal on it was a bunch of French painters that were doing this, and their minis were beautiful. I loved the way they painted, and I was just starting painting miniatures, and I really admired their work, these artists, and so that's how I wanted to paint. So I started painting that non-metallic, and am I the best at non-metallic metal? No, I'm not. Am I passable? I think I'm pretty passable at it. Since we have this line going down the center of this leg, we're going to carry that down to the armor down here. Now, there's straps too. So there's armor and then there's straps, which is kind of confusing where the armor starts and the straps stop. I'm not entirely certain. Anyways, we're just going to paint a line down here. This is another one of those instances of I really don't know. Oh, and I'm off camera even. I'm way over here. Let me adjust that. There we go. A little bit. Rathmore says, but yeah, still learning non-metallic metal because sometimes it just needs to be non-metallic metal. I feel like I find that with non-metallic metal, there are certain details and things that you can define easier in things that are supposed to be metal, things that are weapons and armor. You get a better high contrast with non-metallic metal, and it shows off those details more. Whereas with metallic paint, you've got all this extra reflection thrown in, and it just sort of muddies the water, so to speak. But there are a ton of people out there who would absolutely disagree with me, which is fine. Everybody likes their own way of painting, everybody has their own style. I happen to like this one, so I'm going to keep doing it. So I've got this line going down here. This line of reflections is what I'm thinking of it as. This line of reflections. It goes down here and it kind of goes around. We're gonna put a mid-tone in here, but when we flip him over, we can see that right here there's this sort of peak, and we wanna define that too. So we're gonna take the edge of the brush and hit that. And then each of these little, there's these little segments of this armor. Oh, and there's one that goes down onto his boot too. I just noticed. Goes all the way down. I think part of this is that there's a mold line that runs down the leg right here, and it confuses the detail of where the armor and the leather straps are supposed to stop and start. Uh, so we've got rivets. We've got this little detail here. Then there's going to be this darker shadow. Maybe we're going to put some midtones in there. Exactly, Rathmore. They're both techniques, and one no less legit than the other. And people are allowed to like one better than the other. I was going to say, and I totally lost my train of thought. I was going to say the reason I don't use metallics so much is because I'm not very good with them, because I haven't had a lot of practice with metallic paints, because I've been for so long I've been trying to hone my skills at non-metallic metals for years and years. So I haven't really studied how to paint with metallic paints. Therefore, like with anything, I'm not that good at it because I didn't practice. Now, under here, there's reflected light that's reflecting off the ground. So we're just going to take the side of the brush and do a few little stippled dots, trying to pick up some uh, some of this textural detail that we know is down there, even though it's difficult to see because it's just hard to get the brush in there at that angle. So I'm just sort of dry brushing carefully. This is a very carefully targeted dry brush I'm doing with the side of the bristles. I think I just have to come in with my mid-tone, or maybe this is an issue of I need to go back and forth a little bit on that. But it's so hard to get to that area. And I just ended up painting on his pants, I think. But it's a good thing I have that dark color. I could just cover that up. It never happened. Oh, you couldn't even see it. I had the base was in the way. There's this one part where the armor ends and the pants start, and I just painted over it. But I used my dark shadow color that's sitting here. It's fairly neutral, even though it is blue, red, phthalo green, and yeah, that's it. I didn't even put magenta in that. It's blue, red, phthalo green. That's it. 3 colors, making this dark color, making this light gray when I add white. So that is much more highly reflective than it was. I'll go in there again, try and make it a little more reflective. These rivets, I want to try and catch the reflection on these rivets without getting paint on the base and without getting paint on his pants. All right, I feel like we're in a good spot on that leg. We'll do the other leg. Now, do I do the swords too? I might as well. It's all going to be steel. So this leg, the light source is coming from up here. You can see where it is on his forehead, where it is on this armor. So you know it's going to hit right here on the edge of this. It's going to hit right here. And all the little segments going down. Segment. That's the word I was trying to think of earlier. I want to catch the whole upper edge of this with this side of my bristles. Make a nice sharp reflection here. And I'll catch the bottom part of each segment too. At least that's what we're going to shoot for. And then we'll remember that there's one that's right on the boot. It's right there. But this reflection is going to go around the top. It's going to be brightest right up here. And then we have this part where it comes to a point again. Just like on the other leg, just like on that middle, on this armor here. But now, what way does the reflection go? I think it picks up over here where it's reflecting off the cape. Ooh, that means we have cape color reflecting on this side in the midtones. So I'll need that cape color. What color was that? What color was that? I don't remember what I used for that. Blue and magenta and green, perhaps? This is like a weird archaeological expedition. What colors did I use for that? Red? Was red involved in this somewhere? I feel like maybe it was red and blue. All right. So red, blue, they make this sort of maroon. Maybe I added a little yellow to it. I don't know. I don't remember. Oh, what an adventure. Nosferatu, hi. How you doing tonight? Good to see you. Is this a is this a friendlier viewing time than my afternoon stream? The question is, do I want this color to be lighter? Maybe I put a little. Oh, I'm not using my crappy mixing brush. I'm using my good brush. Oh well. So you can see what I did here. I started my white over here, and then I just slowly ran it into my darker color. So I have a little dark, I have a little sort of medium, and then I have this white-ish, off-white color here. I should do that for all my colors. But for now, I'm just going to pick the back of this boot where it's reflecting the light from the cloak a little bit. Oh, this poor brush. I think this poor brush needs to be retired. You know what happens? You know what happens then? This is what I do. I put a little red dot on the end of it, and I set it aside, and then I know, see, I can use it for other things that don't require a fancy, a fine point. It's not a fancy brush. It's a synthetic brush, but uh, the newer ones work better, of course, for fine details. The older ones, they work better for other things. Let me see if I have another one. What were you? What were you? This guy was a 00. I've got another 00 here waiting to take his place. So we just want to rinse this guy off. Nosferatu says, actually, I'm getting ready for bed. Cleaning up my oil paint 2D mess, but wanted to say hi. Ooh, you're painting oil paints. 2D oil paints, no less. You'll have to send me pictures. And you'll have to let me know how the oil painting process is going. Also, sweet dreams. Have a good night. Say hi to Bridgette. It's bad. Well, I mean, you have to start somewhere, right? And usually you start with mud. Are you in the mud phase, Nosferatu? All right, so I got a little bit of this in the midtone, but now I feel like what I really need is some saturated color, something that doesn't have the white in it. And I'm just gonna throw that in. It's a thin glaze that I'm using. This purpley color. Sometimes that's what you want because when you add white to something, it does two things. Well, maybe it does more than two things, but the two things that I notice it does, one is obvious, is it lightens the color. It makes the value lighter. But what it also does is it desaturates the color. So it's lighter, but now the color is less intense. And you have to somehow bring back that intensity in the midtones. And now I'm just adding a little plain old white again to the edges, because our rule of thumb with non-metallic metal is you just have to go over back and forth. That's just all there is to it. It's a lot of back and forth. This, I think, is the area where we want that lighter color, right on this side. I'm liking that. I think we were going to do his boots black, and then I don't know what color the leather should be, the leather straps. I kind of want to just leave the leather straps kind of the color that they are, which is a little cheaty, but it's not cheaty. It just seems cheaty because they're already almost done. And I don't have to paint over them. Hey, Diomedes Industries. Did someone say leather? Yes, the Dio showed up right as I said leather. Diomedes Industries is a leather worker. So naturally he shows up while I'm talking about the leather. Naturally. How are you tonight, Dio? Okay, so on this side, we said this is going to be reflecting the wood, and we mixed up this wood color to use in the midtones. So let's go ahead and do that. Where's our midtones though? Right here? Well, there's only one way to find out if it looks good right here, and that's to put it here. That's why there's a lot of back and forth with non-metallic metal, because sometimes the only way to find out if it's going to work is to just do it. And then you realize, well, if you're lucky, then it works. But if you're not, then you realize it doesn't work and you have to do it over again. And do something else. You have to figure out some other way to do it. I know that's not how some people feel like they want to approach painting miniatures. Uh, the idea of not having a roadmap or an instruction manual or a recipe to follow uh, can be a little nerve-wracking. It can be. But sometimes you just have to take that plunge. So we've got that brown here. I think I didn't need to bring it all the way up here. So I have this gray. I'm going to go in with this gray here and tone down that brown on this side. And then I have my dark not black trademark TM not black. I'm actually going to make a line that goes down this to define that shadow area that delineates my midtones from my highlight shape. A little extra contrast there too. That never hurts. Then we're going to bring up our highlights on the edge here, the leading edge, I guess. And these two pieces, these two segments down here seem to aim up again. They seem to curve out a little bit. So I feel like they're going to catch the light again a little. He does seem to be hugging the left side of everything. Let's see if I can. Oops, no way. I could get him further this way. So we've got that wood reflection. I'm gonna put some back down here. I think I covered it up a little bit. But now I want to take my dark color and define a little line on the underside of each segment. Oops, that was a little more than I intended. So we just rinse that off. I just rinsed the paint off my brush and then just took the damp brush, fixed it. If you can do that while your paint is still wet, you can save yourself a lot of time later. So we've defined each segment of this again. And go straight up the side and add a little extra dark contrast right at the edge of where that armor is. So you really can see that it's more defined there. I think if I turn him over, I can get to this side better. We're going to do the same thing on this side. It's a very tiny detail. And now we're going to go across the front, being really careful not to overdo it. It has to be a very thin, skinny line. And now we're going to do the same thing on the other leg. But I also have to do more on the pants because the pants are really not that dark and I wanted them to be black. Nash NATO. I am wearing a jeweler's scope. This is a really cheap one. I did get it at a jeweler's shop, but this is like a $10 one. It's not super fancy. Um, but yes, having a magnifier visor and or a magnifier light, one that does not have incandescent bulbs, I might add, uh, huge help. Huge help. No, it's not a bad price. It's not a fancy one at all though. It's like there's two sets of lenses and then there's a little jeweler's loop and it's all plastic. I mean, this isn't glass. It's just plastic. This is my tea. It's Earl Grey. Hot. And it's still hot because my husband got me a cup warmer. Keeps my drinks warm. That makes me all sorts of happy. You're very welcome, Nash. Hi, Vlieger Dragon. How's V? You're not are you just popping in to say hey, or are you guys already done with your Earth Dawn stuff that you were doing? I'm adding in this mid-tone brown again on this side because look at how this side of this armor is pretty much facing this wood. So I want to add this color in here. And I can add in a dark color again later. I can add in a lighter color if I need to. But for now, I feel like this color is where we want to be right there. Also, man, it's hard to get the brush down in there on that side. I do kind of feel like I need more dark shadows, but at the same time, I feel like the light is going to be bouncing off of this wood straight up onto here. So is there going to be dark shadows down there? League Dragon says we are done. So how was Earth Dawn, V? You didn't play? Was it like a session 0 tonight? Still getting things set up? Right on. So it's like a session 0.0 or 0.1? I think I think we need more wood reflection on this side too. We need more wood on this side. It's like you don't realize it until it's there. And then you go, oh, I see. It's like this side might be even blue a little. Like the sky is reflecting on it. Because, the sky sometimes, you know. Excuse me. Rathmore says, oh, I see. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Where do I want? Well, I want blue. I want more blue up here. Only I want it to be lighter. I want it to be a lighter value. So we're gonna throw some white in there with that. It's gonna be a very light blue, and I'm using my brand new non-crappy brush for mixing my white in, which is not what I wanted to do. That's the way you ruin a brush. That's why I have my crappy mixing brush over here, which is just for mixing stuff and not for anything detail oriented whatsoever. And when you try to use your detail brush for a mixing brush, it is soon no longer a detail oriented brush. So I'm just dabbing this lighter blue color that I mixed right on here. And now I'm going to hit that with some white again. Doing just little lines, tiny little, almost imperceptible little lines of brush strokes here. And then I want to use my dark color. And I've got almost this sort of a line of black, or TM, almost black. And I'm going to use this here again like I did on the other one to separate these segments. Can't talk, no more words, all done. And then I'll get that white down there again. I'll get my dark color down in that hard to reach spot, which may not even appear on camera. It's so hard to reach. Fleeger Dragon says, crappy mixing brush. We love our crappy mixing brush. Yes, it's a vital tool. Dark color, not white. Dark color is not white. Dark is dark. We're going to enhance our shadows. And we'll go from the back here and do that same thing we did on the other leg, which is to go straight down right next to the armor to just kind of define that where the armor ends. And it's important to have that well defined. And I feel like there's a mold line there, which makes it a little more challenging. And now we separated all the pointy part. Did I just touch my brush to it? While I didn't have my visor down. I feel like there's another line of dark that should be going right up there, but you know what? I don't know. I kind of like it like it is, so I'm going to leave it. Part of me feels like there should be a thing there, like a line of dark, but the other part of me says, you know what? No, I like it this way. Artistic license is a thing, so yeah. Yep. So there's buckles on the backs of these straps, but they're so hard to see. I cannot decide if I actually want to paint buckles or just make them just be straps. This is another thing you can take artistic license with. Somebody makes a detail that is so tiny that nobody will be able to tell if you paint over it. And you don't feel like enhancing that detail. You can just paint over it. I can't do that because now that I know there's buckles there, now I have to paint them. And that just means a few dots. I'm not going to try and make lines with the tip of my brush. I'm just going to try and make a few dots. Kind of in the trying to follow the line of these tiny buckles. Otherwise, there's just no way. Otherwise, there's no way. I think I need to carry over my dark line all the way this way. All the way there. Gran, it's Gran No Cookies. Hey, Gran. Dio says stop whining and paint the buckles, woman. Dio, I'm painting the buckles. I'm painting the buckles. Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied? Hi, Gran. How's Gran? How's Gran doing? Dio's, you're not satisfied. I have one word for you, Dio. I'm stealing it from Slade, and I think you know what it is. I don't feel like I have to say it. Kathy's doing okay. Dio has ennui. Oh my god, Dio has ennui. Oh, forfend. Heaven forfend. You should have ennui. Where's the buckles on the other side? That's what I didn't want to do. These buckles over here. Why? Okay, stick my brush in there and hope for the best. This is for you, Dio. Is it raining outside? Again? Those buckles on the back of that. Because it wasn't hard enough to reach. You're welcome, Dio. Gren says Cathee is sticking things in places and hoping for the best. Look, Gren, sometimes that's what you have to do, isn't it? Sometimes you gotta stick your brush in places and, you know, hope for the best. I'm going to go in with my dark color here and go over my previous dark color, which now I'm looking at it, doesn't seem to look that dark. So we're just going to go over it with our current dark color, which somehow looks darker. Oh, I just painted over a buckle. I just painted over another buckle and another. So I just have to redo all three of those buckles because, yeah, well, that's about par for the course. That wasn't the kind of back and forth that I was thinking of when I said that I have to go back and forth on my non-metallic metal a lot. Not the I'm just going to accidentally paint over these things that I painted. That was not what I meant. Not what I meant. Not what I intended. Yes, Rathmore, get the brush wet, stick it in, wiggle it around, and hopefully it will work. Exactly. Moist brush. Alright, let's do these buckles again. Shall we? 1, 2, 3. Who puts a buckle there? Why? Why? Why would you do this to me? Oh, sculptor? Also, a thing that I did last week that I noticed as I was taking pictures the day after is a thing I didn't. Well, I will tell you as soon as I'm done painting buckles. Otherwise, I'm going to mess up again. Alright, I feel like the buckles, I think the buckles are good. They better be good. So, I painted the lining of his coat like linen, right? So it's kind of white down here. And then as I was taking pictures, I thought, wow, that's it's the same brightness as his hair. That's the same brightness as this reflections. This down here, facing downwards underneath here, should be in shadow, and therefore the values here should be darker. So what I need to do is take the brush that I just retired and do a little bit of a wash there to tone that down a little bit. Just needs to be darker. And I'm going to use some of that brown because, it's right in front of it. So it's going to be reflecting a little. I'm going to also use a little magenta and blue. So it's going to be brownish. It's thin. I'm adding water to it. So I just want to tone this down a little so it's not so bright. And that's what we're doing. And we'll let that dry, otherwise I'll just be pushing that color around on model, which isn't going to get anything accomplished if I try and add another layer while it's still wet. So now I'm just going to go in and shade these trousers darker. They need to be darker. They were supposed to be black. They just don't seem black to me. Or even, that dark. So we're going to fix that. This whole area under here is going to be black. This whole area under here, and I say black, but of course I mean TM, almost black. It's not going to be black, it's going to be almost black. Well, it's certainly going to be darker than it is now. Oh, you know what? I forgot. I forgot to do this armor here. And I forgot that there's this whole part of this sort of cuirass goes on his torso. Trousers! Uh, Rathmore wants to know if their shorts, are they called falsers? I didn't say truthers, I said trousers. Like beggars can't be trousers. That's what the people say. So let's get some white on the brush again here and pretend like we didn't make a mistake. We'll just throw in a little reflection there. And we got this whole thing on the other side. Now I have Smokey Robinson playing in my head, which is not terrible. Alright, so light source is coming from the upper right of him, left of us. I feel like it's going to maybe hit here. It's going to hit this edge, which is different from on the other side of the model. And I can't quite get my brush at the angle I want. So I gotta turn the model around. And you can't quite make the brush stroke you want on the model. You just have to move the model around. And that is why those fancy little model holders with the clips. I don't mean hobby holders. I mean, you know what I mean. There's a weighted base and it has these little arms that have hinges on them. these little joints, and they are articulated. And then they have these little crocodile clamp things on them, and it's supposed to hold the sprue or whatever of the model you're painting. And I know that back when I first started painting minis, I got one of those because I thought it would be useful. But it turns out it isn't, because you have to keep manipulating the model all the time in your hand. You have to keep moving the direction of the model. It's not just, static and you just paint around it. No, you have to keep turning it and twisting it, and having it in one of those clips is just impractical. I mean, it depends on what you're doing, I suppose. There may be times where that's the ideal situation, but for painting miniatures like this, it is not as handy as you would think it would be. And I am getting my dark color on this linen color here. And now that looks way less bright. Way less bright. See how it falls back now and the armor stands out more? V says there are no mistakes. Cathee never makes mistakes. Only happy accidents. Yes, Rathmore. Of course. Of course. You are correct. No mistakes. Only happy accidents. All right. I need more white. I need more light reflections here. More pow. There we go. That's what I needed. That's what I needed. And I feel like I need to go back to this side. And I need to get that over here too a little bit more. Because I don't think there's a lot of that over here. There we go. You can really see that. I have it pretty thick on my brush. And that's why it's so opaque and white. And now it looks way more reflective. It also looks a little blobby close up. But that will be smoothed out as we go. But now I feel like we need to do that right in here where we first started tonight. And we need to get our darks down in here too. Just like we did on the boots, and separate all these segments. They look like they're separated right now, but when we get our dark in there and separate them and really focus on doing that, then you'll see how much more it'll stand out. And these buckles. And this crazy unicorn. So, I think some of you weren't here yet when I discovered that there's this medallion hanging from a chain, and it's a unicorn. It's a unicorn head. And I didn't realize that until today. Oof. I got a little carried away there with my white. Oh, here I am. What did I say? Trying to paint my details with the brush that I just retired because it's no longer good at painting details. Yep, I just did that. And I was wondering why things weren't being as crisp as I thought they should be. 'Cause yeah, yep, totally a happy accident and not at all a mistake. But now it's time to hold my breath, do these lines. There's some tiny crazy detail lines. If this was a larger scale, these designs would show up great. That's my eternal lament for digitally sculpted things. Like, wow, this is a really fun model. And I can see that there's all these tiny details that I will never be able to paint at this scale because it's just too small. And I'm not one of those people that can paint a village on a grain of rice. Alas. Maybe I need to learn that art. That would be interesting. All right, so that's more reflective already. Now it's just kind of black lining around various details. Oh, I definitely need to add some. Boy, back here the leather straps are. Let's just say that there's some things desperately in need of shading under his armpit. Yes, Rathmore, I just wanted the extra challenge. JVN, hey, how are you? Welcome in. How you doing tonight? Grandma Cookies says one of the artists in the Byward Market could paint pictures on rice. Yeah, that is a skill. Gren says, don't know if he still holds the world record, but he did at one point. Throw some shade. I'm throwing severe shade into the armpit of this model. Look. It needed shade. Also, I just remembered that I need to do the back of these armor things, which are supposed to be metal, which I did not paint. Cause yeah. You know what? You know what? Let me just do one thing at a time here. Do some dark lining. I'll just keep up with the dark lining where I am. Concentrate on one thing, Cathee. Don't lose focus. You never lose focus. Never. Never. Dark lining to give more depth to everything. You create volume. To separate some of the areas from other areas so that you can see different details more sharply. Like this necklace. Or just where this strap crosses over the other strap. It's very different than when we started out today. So you reach the brush back in the back on that side, and then you do the same thing on this side. Now his armpit is in shadow now, but these leather straps could use a little extra shadow. So we're just glazing a thin little bit of our dark color there, so you can still see the strap color, but now we've just kind of made that fall into the background a little bit. Excuse me. Do you have a place for the evil spirits to hide? Evil. All right, a little more dark lining. Whoa, where are we going? We need to do this weird side armor stuff. This I don't even know what they call these. This upper thigh armor. No idea. If Fanglod was here, I'm pretty sure he knows everything. You're not here, are you, Fanglod? We're just gonna throw a little bit of this purple too over here. Ooh, get some of this gray purple. Because it's kind of reflecting. You know, get some magenta, a little magenta going here. So just do some, yeah, a little magenta blue kind of thing going on there. Heat that up a little. And we'll work on the other side. Tassets. Thank you, Gran. You're the other person who knows armor, and I forget that sometimes. Tassets. And I liked how the blue magenta kind of thing was going on the other side, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw some into this side. I'm just going to glaze it on. A loose glaze here. Nice little shadow. We'll do gray on the front, just boring gray. Or maybe a little blue. A little blue in the midtones. That's what we were planning to do. Oh, we were planning to do that over here too. What? Totally forgot about that. Yeah, totally forgot that. That makes it a little different. Bren says I googled it. My brain refused to supply the info. I appreciate it, Gren. Rathmore says my college dorm had an armor shop in the basement. It was run by one of the world's experts on medieval armor. I should have paid more attention to him. He was nice, but I never took the time to learn from him. Well, when you're young, you're stupid. Really. We, we when we're young, we don't know, how good some of the things are that we're exposed to. We, you know, we either don't pay attention, we don't care, we just don't remember. Rathmore says, but whenever we needed a tool to do something, college like, you go talk to Mac and he'd take care of us. That's cool. I'm going lighter blue. Now I want to go straight up white again. I don't want to lose that white. I don't want to lose the blue, but I also don't want to lose that white reflection. We were at dark lining before we realized we needed to do some reflected light. So let's go back to that. I just wanted to do some dark lining before I call it a night. That lining is a little less dainty than I might have liked. To be honest. Ooh, too much water on my brush. Not enough paint. And I think, do I want a little blue on this side too? A little bit of blue, a little bit of purple. And then we want to go with the white. We're building up the white. This is that part of the NMM where I said we're just going back and forth. We had the white here, and then we painted over it. And getting our other color in there. Now we got to bring it back. And I'm holding my breath a little bit as I do this, so can't I haven't found a way to talk and hold my breath at the same time. Not effectively. I'm just going to throw a little bit of reflected light in here. I feel like it needs a little. You hear me say I feel like it needs a little, and that's because, I don't really know the physics of it. I'm just kind of eyeballing it and letting things take shape. And I know that isn't the way that some people would want to approach it, but that's the way I'm approaching it. And I feel like it reads. It does read as armor. And that's what I want. It reads as armor. Rathmore says he would make suits of armor for rich folks and Scotians. I knew people like that. I knew people who made armor for, well, they sold armor at Renaissance fairs. They made armor and sold it at Ren fairs. Anyways, that is me done tonight. I'm stopping a little bit early because this is a good stopping point. And I will be back again next Tuesday. We're gonna work a little more on the armor because I totally forgot that he has bracers that have armor on them. And then we'll do the swords. And then we're gonna revisit his cape, which is a little streaky. And so I want to smooth that out and get that looking a little bit better. And then he will be almost done. Then he'll be pretty much done. I might do a little bit more to his face. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, swords, bracers. I will be posting pictures again soon. Tomorrow, day after tomorrow. I will be posting on my Instagram and that's that. Thank you everybody for joining me tonight. And have a good night. I will see you next time. I'm Cathee Wapple. This is Cathee Paints. Bye, everybody.